women's suffrage movement is believed to have emerged in 18th century France. Women's suffrage has undeniably been a major goal of women in society since forever. While suffrage is primarily the right to vote, it also includes the right to run for office, own property, and have a divorce. In 1893, New Zealand became the first country to grant women's suffrage. Initially, only certain women of certain races were allowed to vote, and no women were allowed to run for parliament. In 1933, 40 years later, Elizabeth became the first female member of parliament. Women had already been allowed to run for parliament for 14 years. This is one of the many struggles women had to endure before they received equal rights. In the United States, women endured stereotypes too, such as a woman's place is in the home. In the 19th century, most women that weren't Native American were reduced to being housewives in marriage, which was pretty much their only option to begin with. Women were believed to be physically and intellectually inferior to men. Some laws restricted women from working jobs that included lifting heavy weights or working over 8 hours a day. Those women were hardly ever qualified in terms of education, which left them to be employed as dressmakers or midwives at best. This may not have had an immediate effect on society, but it is probably what pushed women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton to fight for equal rights. Eventually, women believed they were strong and they were intelligent, and this helped women out during the World Wars, when they were the only people left around to work heavy-duty industrial jobs building planes and tanks and stuff. At the time, however, a lot of men and women were against women's suffrage. In New York, there was the New York State Association opposed to women's suffrage. They believed in domestic feminism and that women had the right to freedom in the home. There were very few radical anti-suffragists, too, who believed suffrage would make a difference. Some believed the whole system was unjust and they wanted a penal revolution. Obviously, there were strong advocates of women's suffrage, too, such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. They are famous for their involvement at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York, which was one of the earliest big women's rights events. Susan B. Anthony was a big part of the movement as well. Together, Stanton and Anthony founded the National Women's Suffrage Association. Stanton wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, which was similar to the Declaration of Independence, except it stated that women should have the rights given to men in the original Declaration. She modeled some of her other writings on constitutional amendments, some of which actually became legislature. Today, women in most of the world can vote. According to the CIA World Factbook, the only two territories that don't permit women suffrage are the United Arab Emirates and Western Sahara. Actually, that's a bit of a complicated political situation, but yeah. This means women are pretty much covered politically for now. What about socially? What about economically? On Facebook, hundreds of likes exist claiming women exist only to make sandwiches for their boyfriends playing Call of Duty. Many things along those lines too. Whether you'd like to believe it or not, sexism still exists in the world. While Chinese baby girls aren't exactly thrown down wells or abandoned that much anymore, boys are still preferred. Women in America are widely believed to make 77% of a man's salary on average. This is disputed and perhaps not true, but I'm inclined to believe it. And true, while there are quite a few women in the Senate and the House of Representatives, the numbers are far too small to be considered sexual equality. The same can be said for other countries, if not worse.
Closer to